I, 28F, stood in the middle of the crowded room, a glass of champagne in my hand that I hadn't touched. The low hum of conversation felt distant, like a radio playing in another car. My boss, Mr. Harrison, had insisted on throwing this party for me. He said my promotion to senior project manager was a big deal for the whole department. I felt a small smile touch my lips. It was a big deal for me, too. I had worked for this. I had earned this. Every late night, every weekend spent staring at spreadsheets, it had all led to this moment. My sister, Stella, 30F, slinked through the crowd and appeared at my side. She was wearing a red dress that was just a little too bright for a corporate party. It was her way of making sure all eyes were on her, even when the event was not about her. She plucked the champagne flute from my hand and took a long sip. "You look nervous," she said, her voice smooth and practiced. "I'm not nervous," I replied. "I'm happy." Stella surveyed the room, her eyes landing on Mr. Harrison, who was laughing with a few of the senior partners. She then looked back at me, a slow, condescending smirk spreading across her face. It was a look I had seen 1,000 times, usually right before she said something designed to cut me down. "You don't deserve this, you know," she whispered. Her voice a low hiss meant only for me. "I do." My breath caught in my throat. The familiar sting of her words was immediate, a cold splash of water on the warm glow of my achievement. I had expected a backhanded compliment or a passive-aggressive comment about the party itself, but this was direct. This was cruel. My stomach dropped. I knew I couldn't let this go. "What did you say?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. She just smiled that same infuriating smile. "You heard me. This job, this party. It should have been for me. You just got lucky." I felt a surge of anger, hot and sharp. "Lucky? I worked for this, Stella. I put in the hours. You work in a completely different department." Details, she said, waving her hand dismissively. "I have the mind for strategy. You just follow orders. Everyone knows I'm the brilliant one. You are just the one who tries hard." My mother and father drifted over, their faces beaming, but their smiles were directed at Stella. My mother reached out and smoothed a non-existent wrinkle on Stella's dress. "There you are, sweetie," my mother said to her. "You look absolutely stunning." "Doesn't she always?" my father added, his eyes full of adoration for his older daughter. He then turned to me, his smile becoming a little more polite, a little more distant. "Congratulations, Chloe. This is a nice little party." A nice little party. For my major career milestone. My own father called it a nice little party. The words felt like a slap. I felt my resolve harden. I would not let them ruin this for me. "Thank you, Dad," I said, keeping my voice even. "I'm glad you could make it." "Of course," my mother said, her attention already back on Stella. "We wouldn't miss a chance to see our girls." Stella looped her arm through my mother's. "Chloe did so well," she said, her voice dripping with fake sincerity. "We're all so proud of her for trying her best." The condescension was so thick I could barely breathe, trying my best, as if I were a child who had managed to color inside the lines for the first time. The worst part was that my parents just nodded along, completely oblivious to the poison in her words. They had always done this. Stella was the star, the prodigy. I was the reliable, hardworking one, the supporting character in her story. I took a deep breath, ready to say something, to finally break the cycle. I was tired of being the quiet one who just took it. But before I could speak, a hush fell over the room. Mr. Harrison had stepped onto a small, makeshift stage near the bar. He tapped a glass with a spoon. "Attention, everyone. Can I have your attention for a moment?" he asked. The chatter died down. Everyone turned to face him. I saw Stella preen, as if she expected him to praise her for simply gracing us with her presence. I just stood there, my heart a leaden weight in my chest. Mr. Harrison smiled, his eyes scanning the crowd until they landed on me. As you all know, we're here tonight to celebrate Chloe. Her promotion to senior project manager is not just a new title. It is a testament to her dedication, her insight, and her incredible work ethic. She has consistently gone above and beyond, and this promotion is well and truly earned. I felt a blush creep up my neck. It was nice to hear the words spoken so plainly, so publicly. I chanced to look at Stella. Her smile was tight, her eyes like chips of ice. But that's not the only reason we're celebrating tonight, Mr. Harrison continued, his voice taking on a new level of excitement. The room grew even quieter. This promotion is also the final step in a much larger plan. As some of you know, we are expanding our operations into Europe next year. It's the biggest project this company has ever undertaken. He paused for dramatic effect. I could feel the tension in the room. This was big news. The senior project manager role, he went on, looking directly at me again, is the last audition. The person who excels in this role over the next few months will be offered the position of head of the new European division. A collective gasp went through the room. Head of the European division. That was a vice president level position. It was a career-making, life-changing opportunity. My mind was reeling. I had no idea. The room erupted into applause, this time louder, more energetic. People were looking at me with a new kind of respect, a new kind of awe. Mr. Harrison raised his glass. So let's raise a toast to Chloe, our new senior project manager and the leading candidate for our future in Europe. The room shouted my name. To Chloe! I stood there, stunned into silence. I looked over at my sister. The smirk was gone. Her face was a mask of pure, unadulterated fury. Her eyes were fixed on me, and in them I saw not just jealousy, but a chilling, calculating look. It was a look that said this was not over. It was a look that promised a fight. And in that moment, her earlier words came back to me. You don't deserve this. I do. I finally understood. She wasn't just being cruel. She was making a declaration of war. The party continued for another hour, but I barely registered it. People came up to congratulate me, their words a blurry mix of excitement and envy. I shook hands and smiled, but my mind was elsewhere. I kept replaying that look on Stella's face. The raw ambition, the rage. It was more than just sibling rivalry. It was something darker. My parents, for their part, seemed suddenly more interested in me. My father clapped me on the shoulder, his grip a little too tight. Head of Europe, Chloe. My goodness, we had no idea. I didn't either, I admitted honestly. My mother fussed over me for once ignoring Stella, who was now standing alone in a corner, nursing her drink and glaring at me. You'll have to be careful, my mother said, her voice a worried whisper. That's a lot of responsibility. I can handle it, Mom, I said, a new confidence blooming in my chest. Mr. Harrison believed in me. The company believed in me. Maybe it was time I started believing in myself, too. Of course you can, dear, she said, though she didn't sound convinced. She glanced over at Stella. It's just, your sister is so good at that kind of thing, the big picture stuff. I felt the familiar frustration rise up again. Even now, in my moment of triumph, my own mother was suggesting my sister would be better suited for the job. Stella works in marketing, Mom. This is project management. They are very different fields. I know, she said, patting my arm. I'm just saying, it's a shame she doesn't work in your department. She could have been a real help to you. A help to me, or a knife in my back. I looked at my mother, at her well-meaning but utterly clueless face, and I felt a profound sense of loneliness. She would never get it. She would never see Stella for who she truly was. As the party wound down, Stella finally approached me again. The furious mask was gone, replaced by a saccharine, sweet smile that didn't reach her eyes. Congratulations, sis, she said, giving me a stiff, one-armed hug. Head of Europe. Wow, I'm so proud of you. Thank you, Stella, I said, my voice flat. I was done playing this game. You must be overwhelmed, she continued, pulling back. It's such a huge leap. I hope you know what you're doing. I do, I said simply. The statement was firm. It was a promise to myself. She tilted her head. Well, if you ever need someone to bounce ideas off of, you know, someone with a more creative, strategic mind, I'm always here for you. It was a barely veiled insult, wrapped in a phony offer of help. She was still trying to position herself as the superior one, the real genius. I just looked at her. I'll keep that in mind, I said. It was a dismissal, and she knew it. Her smile faltered for a second. A flash of that earlier anger returned to her eyes before she masked it again. Well, I'm off. Big day tomorrow. Unlike some of us, I don't get a promotion for just doing my job. And with that final jab, she turned and walked away, her red dress a slash of color disappearing into the night. I watched her go, the cold feeling in my stomach returning. The battle had just begun, and I had a terrible feeling that my sister would stop at nothing to win. The following Monday, the reality of my new role set in. My old cubicle was gone. In its place was a corner office with a window overlooking the city. It felt strange, like I was wearing someone else's clothes. My first official task as senior project manager was to finalize the initial proposal for the European expansion. It was the project I had been working on for months, the very work that had earned me the promotion. Mr. Harrison wanted it on his desk by the end of the week. I sat down at my new desk and powered on the computer. I navigated to the shared server where the project files were stored. I clicked on the folder labeled Project Atlas, our internal code name for the expansion. Then I clicked on the master proposal document. An error message popped up. File is corrupted and cannot be opened. My blood ran cold. I tried again. Same message. I clicked on the backup file. Corrupted. I tried the autosave version. Corrupted. Every single copy of the most important document of my career was gone. It was just a string of meaningless data. Panic began to rise in my throat. This couldn't be happening. I had spent hundreds of hours on that proposal. It contained market analysis, logistical plans, budget forecasts, and strategic outlines. To recreate it from scratch would take weeks, maybe months. I had until Friday. I immediately called the IT department. A technician named David came up to my office. He was a patient man who had helped me with minor computer issues in the past. He sat at my desk and ran a series of diagnostic tools. I paced back and forth behind him, my hands clasped together so tightly my knuckles were white. After about 20 minutes of clicking and typing, he swiveled in the chair to face me. He had a grim expression on his face. I'm sorry, Chloe, he said. The file is completely destroyed. It's not just corrupted. It looks like it was deliberately overwritten with junk data. There's nothing to recover. Deliberately? I repeated, the word hanging in the air. You mean this wasn't just a random computer glitch? No, he said, shaking his head. I've never seen anything like it. A normal corruption leaves traces, bits and pieces we can sometimes salvage. This is clean. Someone wanted this file to disappear for good. A cold dread washed over me. This wasn't an accident. This was sabotage. My mind immediately flashed to the party, to Stella's furious face, to her parting shot about having a big day. Is there any way to know who did it? I asked, my voice trembling slightly. Can you check the access logs? David sighed. I can. But whoever did this was smart. They routed their access through a temporary admin account that was created and deleted within the same minute. The request for the account was logged, but the trail goes cold after that. It's almost impossible to trace. My heart sank. No file, no proof, just a deep, gut-wrenching suspicion. I was starting my dream job, the biggest opportunity of my life, and someone had already cut my legs out from under me. And I had a very good idea who it was. I thanked David for his help and he left, leaving me alone in my new, empty office with the ghost of my life's work. I sat down in my chair, staring at the useless error message on the screen. Stella. It had to be her. But how? She didn't have access to these files. She didn't have the technical knowledge to pull something like this off. Or did she? I thought back over our conversations. She was always bragging about her connections. She knew people in every department. She had a way of charming people, of getting them to do things for her. I remembered her mentioning a friend in IT a few months ago, a guy named Kevin. She had said it casually, but now it seemed significant. I had to be careful. Accusing my sister of corporate sabotage without any proof would make me look paranoid and unprofessional. It would be my word against hers, and she had always been better at manipulating people's perceptions. I needed evidence. I needed to be smarter than her. My first call was to my best friend at work, Mark. He was a data analyst in a different department, and he was one of the few people I trusted completely. I asked him to meet me for coffee in the lobby. "What's wrong?" he asked as soon as he saw my face. "You look like you've seen a ghost." I quickly explained what had happened. The promotion, the Europe announcement, Stella's reaction, and now the corrupted file. "Wow," he said, shaking his head. "That's a lot. And you think your sister did it?" "I can't prove it," I said, lowering my voice. "But who else would? Who else has the motive? She practically told me she was going to fight me for this." Mark stirred his coffee, his brow furrowed in thought. "The temp admin account is the key. They must have left some kind of footprint. The request had to come from somewhere." "It said the trail went cold," I lamented. "Maybe for them," Mark said, a glint in his eye. "Their job is to fix the problem and move on. My job is to find patterns in data. Let me talk to a friend of mine in network security. No promises, but maybe he can look at the raw server logs. Sometimes there are digital breadcrumbs that the standard tools miss." A sliver of hope returned. Would he do that? It sounds risky. "He owes me a favor," Mark said with a small smile. "And he hates bullies. Just act normal. Don't let anyone know you suspect anything. Especially not your sister." I nodded. "Okay. Thank you, Mark. Really." "Hey, that's what friends are for," he said. "Now go back up to your fancy new office and pretend to be stressed about recreating that proposal. We need her to think she's won the first round." He was right. I had to play the part of the victim. I spent the rest of the day looking frantic. I made a show of calling old contacts, trying to gather the raw data I had lost. I left my office door open so people could see me with my head in my hands. I needed Stella to feel confident. I needed her to get careless. That evening, I went home exhausted and emotionally drained. As I walked in the door, my phone rang. It was my mother. "Chloe, darling, how was your first day?" she asked, her voice cheerful. "It was stressful, Mom," I said, collapsing onto my sofa. "Oh dear, is it too much for you? I told you it was a big jump." I bit my tongue. I wanted to scream at her, to tell her that her perfect daughter had just sabotaged my career. But I couldn't. Not yet. "It's just a lot to get organized," I said evasively. "I had a bit of a computer issue today that set me back." "Oh, that's a shame," she said. "You know, I was just talking to Stella. She mentioned you were having some trouble. She feels so bad for you." My blood turned to ice. "She did? When did you talk to her?" "About an hour ago. She called to check in. She's such a thoughtful girl. She said she heard about some big data loss on your project and she was worried about you." An hour ago. Long before I had even left the office. Long before the news could have possibly traveled through the company grapevine. How did Stella know? Unless, of course, she was the one who had caused it. It was the confirmation I needed. She wasn't just a suspect anymore. She was guilty. And she was sloppy. "That's nice of her," I said, my voice tight with controlled rage. "She even offered to help," my mother continued, oblivious. "She said she has some friends in IT who are wizards. She mentioned a Kevin. She said he can fix anything." Kevin. The name again. My sister was practically handing me the clues on a silver platter. She was so arrogant, so sure of herself that she couldn't even resist bragging to our mother about her connections. "Mom, I have to go," I said abruptly. "I have a lot of work to do." "All right, dear, don't work too hard. And remember, if you need help, your sister is always there for you." I hung up the phone without replying. My hands were shaking, not from fear anymore, but from anger. A cold, clear anger. Stella thought she was playing a game. She thought she was smarter than me. She had just made a very big mistake. She had underestimated me. And now I was going to use her own arrogance to take her down. The next morning, I walked into the office with a new sense of purpose. I was no longer a victim. I was a hunter. I had a target. I spent the morning putting on a performance. I made a few loud, panicked phone calls about the lost data. I let my colleagues see the look of despair on my face. I wanted the whole office to believe I was floundering. I needed Stella to get the message that her plan was working perfectly. Around lunchtime, I decided to make my first move. I walked over to the marketing department, which was on a different floor. Stella was at her desk, laughing with a coworker. She looked up as I approached, her expression shifting to one of feigned concern. "Chloe, what are you doing over here?" she asked, standing up. "I heard what happened. I'm so sorry." "It's a nightmare, Stella," I said, letting my voice crack just a little. "Everything is gone. Years of work." "That's horrible," she said, placing a hand on my arm. Her touch felt like a spider crawling on my skin. "Is there anything I can do? I told Mom I have a friend in IT, Kevin. He's a genius. I could ask him to take a look." She was offering up the name. It was almost too easy. I had to play this perfectly. I pretended to consider it. "I don't know. The company IT guys already said it's hopeless." "Oh, please," she scoffed. "The official channels are useless. They have to follow protocol. Kevin is different. He knows all the backdoors, all the tricks. If anyone can get your file back, it's him." I looked her directly in the eye. "You really think he could help?" "I know he could," she said with absolute certainty. "Let me give him a call for you." This was the moment. She was about to implicate herself. She was so confident in her little scheme that she was willing to involve her accomplice directly. "No, don't," I said, holding up a hand. "I don't want to cause any trouble for your friend. If the company finds out he's messing with a sensitive project file, he could get fired." Stella's smile tightened. "Don't worry about Kevin. He knows how to be discreet." "I'm sure he does," I said, my voice layered with a meaning that she completely missed. "But I think it's too risky. I'll just have to try and rebuild it from scratch. It's my mess to clean up." I watched her face carefully. I saw a flicker of panic in her eyes. My refusal to use her genius friend was not part of her plan. She needed me to either fail completely or to walk into a trap of her own making. Perhaps she thought Kevin could plant more damaging material on my system if I gave him access. "Are you sure?" she pressed. "It seems silly to do all that work again if you don't have to." "I'm sure," I said firmly. "But thank you for the offer, Stella. It was thoughtful of you." I turned and walked away, feeling her eyes burning into my back. I had just planted a seed of doubt in her mind. I had deviated from her script. Now she would be wondering what I was up to. Back in my office, I found an email from Mark. The subject line was just a single word. Bingo. My heart started to race. I closed my office door and quickly opened the email. It was short and to the point. My friend found it. The request for the temporary admin account came from an internal email address. It was spoofed to look like it came from Liam in your department, but the underlying metadata shows the original sender. The email was sent from a marketing department terminal, specifically the one assigned to Stella. I read the email 3 times. There it was, the digital smoking gun. She had used her own work computer to send the request. It was an act of breathtaking arrogance. She must have thought that by spoofing a different employee's email, she had covered her tracks completely. She never imagined someone would dig deep enough to find the origin point. I leaned back in my chair, a slow smile spreading across my face. I had her. I had the proof. I could go to Mr. Harrison right now and end this. But I stopped myself. This was bigger than just getting Stella fired. She had tried to humiliate me, to destroy my career, to take what I had earned. Simply getting her terminated felt too easy. It wasn't enough. She needed to be exposed. She needed to face the consequences of her actions in a way that she could never talk her way out of. I didn't just want her gone. I wanted her to fall. Hard. And I knew just how to do it. The plan began to form in my mind, piece by piece. It was risky. It required patience. But the payoff would be worth it. Stella wanted a war. I was going to give her one. But I would be the one choosing the battlefield. My plan required me to do the one thing I hated most. I had to ask my parents for something. That evening, I called my mother. "Mom, I need your help," I said, injecting a note of desperation into my voice. "Of course, dear. What is it? Are you still struggling at work?" "It's just, I'm so overwhelmed," I said, laying it on thick. "I have to rebuild this entire proposal from memory, and I'm just not a big picture person, you know? I'm good with details, but the grand strategy, it's not my strength." I was using their own words against them, echoing the narrative they had built for me my whole life. The reliable one, not the brilliant one. "Oh, Chloe," my mother said, her voice full of pity. "I knew this would be too much for you." "I was thinking," I continued, "you know how Stella is always so good at that stuff? The creative, strategic thinking?" There was a pause on the other end of the line. I could almost hear the gears turning in my mother's head. "Well, yes," she said slowly. "She is. I was wondering, do you think she would be willing to look over my shoulder a bit? Maybe give me some ideas? I know she's busy, but I'm really drowning here." It was the perfect bait. I was asking for her help, validating Stella's supposed superiority, and playing the part of the damsel in distress. My mother would not be able to resist the opportunity to have her favored daughter swoop in and save the day. "What a wonderful idea," she exclaimed, her voice bright with excitement. "You two should be helping each other. Let me call her right now. I'm sure she would be delighted to help her little sister." "Thank you, Mom," I said, my voice dripping with fake gratitude. "You're a lifesaver." I hung up the phone and took a deep, steadying breath. Phase 1 of my counterattack was complete. I had just invited the fox into the henhouse, but this time the henhouse was a trap. Less than 10 minutes later, my phone rang. It was Stella. "Mom told me you're in trouble," she said. There was no trace of concern in her voice, only a smug, triumphant tone. "I'm in over my head," I admitted. "This strategic stuff is harder than I thought." "I told you," she said. "You're a follower, not a leader. But don't worry, Big Sister is here to rescue you." I had to bite my cheek to keep from laughing. Her ego was so massive she couldn't see the trap even as she was walking into it. "I would be so grateful for any help you can give me," I said meekly. "All right," she said, her voice all business. "I'll come by your office tomorrow morning before anyone else gets in. Say 7 o'clock? We can brainstorm. I'll show you how a real strategist thinks." 7 o'clock is perfect," I said. "Thank you, Stella. I mean it. Just don't forget who saved you when you're sitting in that big office in Europe," she said, and then she hung up. The threat was clear. She wasn't just going to help me. She was going to take credit for my work. She was going to position herself as the mastermind behind my success. And that was exactly what I was counting on. The next morning, I arrived at the office at 6:30. I went straight to my desk and set up my trap. I had spent the previous night creating a new project folder on my personal drive, not the shared server. Inside, I placed a series of documents with tempting titles. European Market Entry Strategy, Draft. Key Investor Talking Points, Budget Projections, confidential. But these were not real documents. They were fakes, and embedded in each one was a tiny invisible tracking pixel. The same kind of technology used in marketing emails to see who opens them. If Stella tried to copy these files or email them to herself, I would get an instant notification. The notification would include the time, the location, and the IP address of the computer that opened the file. It was a digital tripwire, and I was about to lure my sister right over it. At exactly 7 o'clock, Stella swept into my office holding 2 cups of coffee. She placed one on my desk. "Here," she said. "You look like you need it." "Thanks," I said, taking a sip. She sat down in the chair opposite me and looked around my office with a possessive air. "Nice office. It'll be even nicer when I'm running the show from here." She said it as a joke, but we both knew she was serious. "Let's get to work," she said, all business. "Show me what you have so far." I spent the next hour playing the part of the incompetent younger sister. I showed her my scattered notes. I asked her basic questions. I pretended to be confused by simple concepts. With every passing minute, I could see her ego inflate. She was lecturing me, condescending to me and loving every second of it. "No, no, no, Chloe," she said with an exasperated sigh, grabbing my mouse. "You're thinking too small. You can't just enter one market. You have to launch a coordinated multi-country campaign. It's about shock and awe." She was spouting marketing buzzwords that had little to do with the logistical realities of the project, but I just nodded along, pretending to be in awe of her brilliance. "Wow, Stella," I said. "That's really smart. I never would have thought of that." "Of course you wouldn't," she said with a smirk. "Now, where are your actual files? Your financial models, your research?" This was the moment. "Oh, they're on my personal drive," I said casually. "The IT guys told me not to use the shared server for a while, just in case there are still stability issues." I opened the folder on my desktop, revealing the dummy files. "It's all in here." I saw her eyes light up as she read the file names. "Budget projections, confidential. Key investor talking points." This was the treasure trove she had been hoping for. This was the work she could steal and pass off as her own. "Okay," she said, trying to sound casual. "Let me take a look at these. I need to see your baseline assumptions before I can fix them." She spent the next few minutes clicking through the fake documents. I watched my email inbox on my phone, which was hidden under my desk. Nothing yet. She was being careful. She wasn't going to take the bait while I was watching. After about an hour and a half, she stood up. "Okay, I've seen enough. Your entire approach is wrong. It's a mess. But I think I can salvage it." "Really?" I asked, widening my eyes. "What should I do?" "I need some time to think," she said. "To come up with a real strategy. I'll work on some ideas today and we can connect again tomorrow." "Okay," I said. "Thank you so much, Stella. You're a lifesaver." "I know," she said. She turned to leave, but then she paused at the door. "You know, it would be a lot faster if I could just look at these files from my own desk. Can you email them to me?" The bait was dangling right in front of her nose. I had to reel her in carefully. "I can't," I said, shaking my head. "These are highly confidential. I'm not supposed to send them outside the project team. Mr. Harrison would kill me." I saw a flash of frustration on her face. She was so close. "Fine," she snapped, her voice losing its friendly tone. "Be difficult. It'll just take me longer to fix your mess." And then she was gone. I waited exactly 60 seconds, my heart pounding in my chest. Then my phone buzzed. It was an email. Not from Mark this time. It was an automated notification from the tracking service I had used. Subject: Your document, Budget Projections, Confidential, has been viewed. The email contained the details. The file had been accessed. Not just viewed, but downloaded. The IP address was registered to our company's internal network. The terminal ID matched the one assigned to Stella's desk in the marketing department. I leaned back in my chair and let out a long, slow breath. I had her. I had her dead to rights. She had waited until she thought she was in the clear. Then she had remotely accessed my computer and copied the files. She must have installed some kind of remote access software on my machine while she was helping me. The arrogance was staggering, but the trap wasn't fully sprung yet. I had proof she stole the files, but I needed to prove what she planned to do with them. I needed her to present my work as her own, and I needed her to do it in front of the one person who mattered most, Mr. Harrison. That afternoon, I received another blow. It came in the form of an email from Mr. Harrison's actual, real email address. The subject was meeting cancellation. Chloe, the email read, I'm very disappointed. Our client from Berlin just called me. He flew in for the 9 a.m. strategy meeting this morning, the one you were supposed to be leading. He waited for an hour. You never showed up. My stomach turned to acid. What meeting? I didn't have a 9 a.m. meeting with the Berlin client. I frantically searched my calendar. There was nothing there. I'm not sure what's going on with you lately, the email continued, but this is unacceptable. First, the data loss, and now this. You have jeopardized a major client relationship. We need to talk. My office. 4 p.m. I felt the blood drain from my face. This was Stella's work. It had to be. She hadn't just stolen my files. She was actively sabotaging my daily work, making me look incompetent and unreliable. But how? How did she know about the Berlin client? How did she cancel a meeting I didn't even know I had? I scrolled through my emails from the past week, my hands shaking. And then I saw it. An email from 2 days ago. The sender was listed as admin asked to Mr. Harrison. The subject was urgent, reschedule of Berlin strategy meeting. I opened it. The email was polite and professional. It stated that due to a scheduling conflict, the meeting with the Berlin client had been moved from its original time of Friday at 10 a.m. to Tuesday at 9 a.m. It asked me to confirm the change. I vaguely remembered seeing it and clicking confirm without thinking twice. It had looked so legitimate. But Mr. Harrison didn't have an assistant. He always managed his own schedule. The email was a fake. Stella had somehow found out about the real meeting, which was still scheduled for Friday, and sent me a fake cancellation and reschedule. She had made me miss the most important client meeting of my first week. I felt a wave of nausea. She wasn't just trying to outshine me. She was trying to get me fired. At 4 p.m., I walked into Mr. Harrison's office like a prisoner on their way to the gallows. He was sitting at his desk, his face grim. Chloe, sit down, he said, his voice cold. I sat. Explain yourself, he said. I took a deep breath. I couldn't tell him everything. Not yet. It would sound like a crazy conspiracy theory, but I had to defend myself. Mr. Harrison, I began, my voice trembling. I never received an invitation for a 9 a.m. meeting. My calendar shows the Berlin meeting is for this Friday at 10. He raised an eyebrow. The client has a confirmation from you for this morning. He forwarded it to me. I know, I said. I received a fake email on Monday. It looked like it came from your assistant telling me the meeting had been moved. I can show it to you. I pulled out my phone and showed him the email. He studied it for a moment, his expression unreadable. I don't have an assistant, Chloe, he said flatly. I know that now, I said, my voice cracking. I should have been more careful, but it looked so real. Someone is trying to sabotage me. He leaned back in his chair and steepled his fingers, studying me. I felt like a bug under a microscope. Was he buying it? Or did he just think I was making pathetic excuses? First, your entire project file is destroyed by a mysterious glitch, he said, his voice laced with skepticism. Now you're missing critical meetings because of a fake email. This is a lot of drama, Chloe. I promoted you because I thought you were stable and reliable. Now I'm starting to have my doubts. His words hit me like a physical blow. He was losing faith in me. Stella's plan was working. I understand how it looks, I said, my desperation growing. But I'm telling you the truth. Someone is targeting me. Who? He asked bluntly. Who would do that? I opened my mouth to say her name. Stella. But I stopped myself. I had no concrete proof to link her to the fake email. The server logs Mark had found proved she had sent the request to delete my file. The tracking pixel proved she had stolen my new files. But the email was a different attack. It was clever. It was harder to trace. If I accused her now and she denied it, I would look like a liar on top of being incompetent. I don't know, I said, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. But I will find out. Mr. Harrison sighed, a long, weary sound. I hope you do. Because right now your position as the lead candidate for the Europe job is on very thin ice. In fact, I'm going to be opening up the floor for other proposals. I need a solid plan, and I need it by the end of the month. And right now, I'm not confident you can deliver one. He was taking the opportunity away from me. He was opening it up to others. My heart sank. This was exactly what Stella wanted. She now had a window to submit her own proposal, the one she had stolen from me. I understand, I said, my voice hollow. I won't let you down again. See that you don't, he said, turning his attention back to his computer. It was a clear dismissal. I walked out of his office in a daze. The walls felt like they were closing in. Stella had outmaneuvered me. She had not only stolen my work, but had also successfully discredited me in the eyes of my boss. I felt a surge of despair. Maybe she was right. Maybe I wasn't cut out for this. But then the despair curdled into something else. A hard, cold fury. She had pushed me too far. She had insulted my intelligence, sabotaged my work, and was now on the verge of stealing my future. I would not let her win. I went back to my office and closed the door. I pulled out a notepad and started to write. I wrote down every piece of evidence I had. The server log from the deleted file, the IP address from the stolen documents, the fake email. The pattern was clear. I needed one more piece. I needed to connect Stella to the fake email. Mark had helped me with the server logs, but this was different. Tracing a spoofed email was a more complex task. I thought about who could help me. I couldn't go through official IT channels. They would report it to management, and I wasn't ready for that. I needed someone who worked outside the lines. Someone like Stella's friend, Kevin. The idea was audacious. It was dangerous. But it was also brilliant. I was going to use Stella's own weapon against her. I spent an hour searching the company's internal social network. I found Kevin's profile. He was a junior network administrator. His profile was full of nerdy jokes and complaints about his user base. He seemed like the kind of guy who was smart but also arrogant and eager to show off his skills. The kind of guy who could be flattered. I crafted my message carefully. I didn't mention Stella. I didn't mention my project. I framed it as a personal problem. Hi, Kevin, I wrote. My name is Chloe. A friend of mine has been getting some strange, harassing emails, and we're trying to figure out who is sending them. I heard you're a real wizard when it comes to this stuff. I was wondering if you could give me some advice on how to trace a spoofed email address. I'm willing to pay for your time, of course. I was playing to his ego and his wallet. I hit send and waited. For 2 days, I heard nothing. I started to think my plan had failed. I tried to focus on my work, rebuilding my real proposal from a few scattered notes I had at home. It was slow, painstaking work. Every minute, I felt the pressure mounting. Mr. Harrison was avoiding me. My colleagues were giving me looks of pity. I was isolated and running out of time. Meanwhile, Stella was thriving. I saw her in the hallway talking animatedly with senior managers. I heard whispers that she was working on a brilliant, game-changing proposal for the European expansion. She was laying the groundwork, building her own narrative. She would present my stolen work as her own brilliant creation, and everyone would believe her. On Thursday afternoon, just as I was about to give up hope, I got a reply from Kevin. Interesting problem, he wrote. Spoofing is tricky, but not impossible to trace. It depends on how sophisticated the sender was. Send me the email headers, I'll take a look. No charge. I like a good puzzle. My heart leaped. He had taken the bait. I immediately forwarded him the fake email, making sure to include all the header information, which contained the digital routing data. Now, all I could do was wait and prepare for the final confrontation. Mr. Harrison had scheduled a formal project meeting for the following Monday. The purpose of the meeting was for all interested parties to present their preliminary proposals for the European expansion. This was it. This was the stage Stella had been building for herself. And it was the stage I would use to expose her. On Friday afternoon, another email from Kevin landed in my inbox. My hands were shaking as I opened it. Got it, the email began. This wasn't very sophisticated. They used a simple web-based email service to send the spoofed message. But they made a rookie mistake. They didn't use a VPN or a proxy to hide their IP address. My breath caught in my throat. The email continued. The email was sent from a public computer, specifically from the Northwood Public Library, at 3:15 p.m. on Monday. Hope this helps your friend. The Northwood Public Library. It was 3 blocks from Stella's apartment. I knew this because I had helped her move in a year ago. It was a detail so specific, so damning, it was almost unbelievable. She had been so focused on the technical side of the spoof, she had forgotten about the physical world. She had walked from her apartment to the library and sent the email that was meant to ruin my career. I now had every piece of the puzzle. The server log showing she requested the deletion of my file from her work computer. The tracking data showing she stole my new files from her work computer. And now, the location data showing she sent the fake email from a library right next to her home. The case was airtight. I spent the entire weekend preparing. I didn't work on my proposal. I worked on my indictment. I compiled every piece of evidence into a clear chronological timeline. I printed out the server logs, the tracking notifications, and Kevin's email. I put them all into a folder. This was my ammunition. On Monday morning, I walked into the conference room and took my seat. The room was filled with the company's senior leadership. Mr. Harrison was at the head of the table, his face stern. My colleagues were there. And so was Stella. She was sitting opposite me, looking radiant and confident. She gave me a small, pitying smile, the kind you would give to an opponent you were about to crush. Good morning, everyone, Mr. Harrison began. As you know, we are here to discuss the path forward for Project Atlas, given the recent Han setbacks. I have opened the floor for new proposals. We will hear 2 presentations today. First from Chloe, who will update us on her original plan, and then from Stella, who has come forward with an alternative approach. My heart was pounding in my chest. This is it. The moment of truth is here. Chloe, Mr. Harrison said, turning to me. You have the floor. I stood up, my legs feeling a little unsteady. I did not walk to the podium. I stayed by my seat. Thank you, Mr. Harrison, I said, my voice clear and steady. Before I discuss my proposal, I need to address the setbacks you mentioned. I saw a flicker of annoyance on Mr. Harrison's face. He wanted to talk business, not drama. Stella leaned forward, a look of eager anticipation on her face. She thought I was about to make more excuses, to dig my own grave even deeper. As you know, my original project file was destroyed last week, I said, my eyes fixed on Stella. And I missed a critical client meeting. I told you I believed I was being sabotaged. I now have proof. A murmur went through the room. Mr. Harrison's expression hardened. Chloe, this is not the time or the place for... With all due respect, sir, I interrupted, something I had never done before. It is the only time and place. The person who sabotaged me is in this room. The murmur turned into a stunned silence. Every eye was now on me. I had their full attention. I saw Stella's smile falter. A look of confusion, of alarm, crossed her face. My project file was deleted by a temp admin account, I continued, my voice gaining strength. That account was requested using a spoofed email to make it look like it came from my colleague, Liam. But our network security logs show that the request actually originated from a computer in the marketing department, the computer assigned to Stella. Stella shot to her feet. That's a lie. This is ridiculous. She's just trying to cover for her own incompetence. Please sit down, Stella, Mr. Harrison said, his voice dangerously quiet. He was looking at me now. His eyes narrowed. He was listening. The fake email that caused me to miss the Berlin meeting, I went on, my voice like ice. It was sent from a web service to hide the sender, but the sender forgot to hide their location. The email was sent from a computer at the Northwood Public Library, 3 blocks from Stella's apartment. Stella's face had gone pale. She's making this up. She has no proof. Oh, but I do, I said. I reached down and picked up the folder I had prepared. I walked to the head of the table and placed it in front of Mr. Harrison. Here are the server logs, the IP trace from the library, and one more thing. I turned to face my sister. The confident, smug woman who had walked in was gone. In her place was a cornered animal. After my file was deleted, I pretended to be struggling. I told my sister I was overwhelmed and asked for her help. She graciously offered to guide me. While she was in my office, she installed a piece of software that gave her remote access to my computer. She then used that access to copy a new set of files I had created. Files for a proposal I codenamed Project Nightingale. I paused, letting the name hang in the air. I know this because the files were fakes. And they were booby-trapped. Every time they are opened, they send me a notification. I have logs showing those files were downloaded to Stella's computer and have been opened multiple times from her home network over the past 3 days. I looked at Mr. Harrison. I believe Stella is here today to present her brilliant new proposal. I would be very interested to see if it bears any resemblance to my Project Nightingale. The silence in the room was absolute. It was so quiet I could hear the air conditioning. All eyes were on Stella. She was trembling, her face a blotchy mess of white and red. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. She looked from me to Mr. Harrison, her eyes wide with panic. Stella, Mr. Harrison said, his voice devoid of all emotion. Is this true? She stammered. No, She's twisting everything. I was just trying to help her. Did you or did you not access her computer without permission and download her files? Mr. Harrison asked, his voice like a steel trap closing. Stella looked around the room, searching for an ally, a friendly face. She found none. Everyone was staring at her with a mixture of shock and disgust. Her mask had been ripped away, and the ugly reality underneath was exposed for all to see. She started, her voice a desperate squeak. I just wanted to see what she was working on, to make sure it was good enough. It was a confession. A weak, pathetic confession, but a confession nonetheless. She had admitted it, in front of everyone. Mr. Harrison stood up. His face was a mask of cold fury. He looked at Stella, not as a manager looking at an employee, but as a judge passing sentence. Security, he said, his voice booming in the silent room. He didn't shout, but his voice carried an authority that was absolute. Please escort Ms. Stella from the building. Her employment is terminated. Effective immediately. 2 security guards who had been standing discreetly by the door stepped forward. Stella let out a small, strangled sob. No, she whispered. You can't do this. I can and I am, Mr. Harrison said. We will also be exploring all legal options for corporate espionage and intentional destruction of company property. You will be hearing from our lawyers. The guards each took one of her arms. She didn't resist. She was completely broken. As they led her out of the room, her eyes met mine one last time. They were filled with a venomous hatred that chilled me to the bone. But there was something else in them, too. Defeat. Utter and complete defeat. And in that moment, I didn't feel triumph. I didn't feel joy. I just felt a profound, weary sadness. She had done this to herself. She had forced my hand. And now we were both left with the wreckage. After Stella was gone, the room remained silent for a long moment. Everyone was looking at me, their expressions a mixture of awe and pity. I had won, but the victory felt hollow. Mr. Harrison finally broke the silence. He cleared his throat and looked down at the folder of evidence I had given him. He then looked up at me, and for the first time I saw something other than disappointment in his eyes. I saw respect. "Chloe," he said, his voice softer now. "I owe you an apology. I should have trusted you. I am deeply sorry that I doubted your integrity." "Thank you, sir," I said quietly. "You have handled this situation with a level of professionalism and strategic thinking that is, frankly, remarkable," he continued. He looked around the table at the other managers. "I think it's clear to everyone in this room who should be leading our European expansion." He turned back to me, a small smile on his face. "The job is yours, Chloe, the head of the European division. No more auditions, no more proposals. It's yours, if you still want it." I looked at the faces around the table. They were all nodding, smiling at me. The doubt and pity were gone, replaced by admiration. I had not just survived. I had proven myself in the most dramatic way possible. I took a deep breath. The sadness was still there, a dull ache in my chest. But underneath it, a new feeling was starting to grow. A feeling of strength. A feeling of liberation. "I want it," I said, my voice firm and clear. "I've earned it." The aftermath was messy. The company did press charges. Stella was facing a serious lawsuit for damages, not to mention criminal charges for what amounted to hacking and data theft. Her career in any related industry was over. Her name was Mud. The hardest part was the phone call from my parents. It came that evening. My father was the one who spoke. His voice was shaking with rage. "How could you do this?" he yelled into the phone. "How could you ruin your own sister's life?" I was ready for this. I had been preparing for this conversation my whole life. "I didn't do anything, Dad," I said, my voice calm and even. "Stella tried to ruin my career. She committed a crime. She was fired because she got caught. That's all. She was just trying to help you." My mother cried in the background. "You were struggling. You told me so yourself." "I told you what you wanted to hear, Mom," I said, the words sharp and painful. "I told you I was weak so you would send Stella to me. I knew she would try to steal my work, and I set a trap for her. And she walked right into it." There was a stunned silence on the other end of the line. They had no response to that. The idea that I, quiet, reliable Chloe, could be capable of such a thing was beyond their comprehension. "You set a trap? For your own sister?" My father finally said, his voice a horrified whisper. "She declared war on me, Dad," I said. "At my own promotion party. She told me I didn't deserve it and she was going to take it from me. I just chose to believe her. I chose to protect myself. For the first time in my life, I didn't just roll over and let her walk all over me." "She's your family," my mother sobbed. "And what am I?" I asked, the question hanging in the air between us. "Was I not your family when you dismissed my promotion as a nice little party? Was I not your family when you told me to my face that Stella would be better at my job? You have never seen me, either of you. You only ever saw me as a pale reflection of her." The line was silent again. I knew I had hit a nerve. I had spoken the truth that had lived in our family for decades, the truth that everyone knew but no one ever said. "She's lost everything," my father said, his voice weak now, the anger gone, replaced by a hollow despair. "Her job, her future. We're going to have to help her with lawyers. It will drain our retirement." The emotional blackmail was his last resort, but it didn't work. Not anymore. "That is the consequence of her actions," I said, my voice cold. "Not mine. You made your choice a long time ago about which daughter you would stand by. Now you get to live with that choice. I have to go. I have a continent to manage." I hung up the phone before they could reply. My hand was shaking. Tears were streaming down my face. But they were not tears of sadness. They were tears of relief. A lifetime of unspoken resentment, of feeling second best, of being invisible, had just been purged. The final chain had been broken. I was free. A few days later, Mark took me out for a celebratory lunch. "To the Queen of Europe," he said, raising his glass of iced tea. I smiled, a real smile this time. "I couldn't have done it without you, Mark. You were the only one who believed me from the start." "I didn't just believe you," he said. "I saw how hard you worked. I knew what you were capable of. I just helped you show everyone else." He grew more serious. "How are you doing? For real?" I thought for a moment. "It's strange," I admitted. "Part of me is still in shock. I destroyed my sister's life." "No," he said firmly. "She destroyed her own life. You just held up a mirror and made her look at it. There's a difference." "And my parents," I trailed off. "They'll either come around or they won't," he said gently. "But you can't build your future around their approval. You have to build it for yourself." He was right. My future was mine now. It was a blank page waiting for me to write on it. The next few months were a whirlwind. I worked harder than I had ever worked in my life, but it was a different kind of work. It was fulfilling. I was building something, not just following orders. I hired a team. I flew to Berlin, Paris, and Rome. I was respected. I was a leader. I didn't hear from my parents. I heard through a cousin that they had mortgaged their house to pay for Stella's legal fees. She had avoided jail time, but she had a criminal record and a massive civil judgment against her that she would likely never be able to pay. She had moved back in with them. The golden child had returned home, tarnished and broken. One evening, I was in my new apartment in Brussels, packing for a trip to Madrid. I came across an old photo album. I opened it to a random page. It was a picture of me and Stella as children. I was about 6. She was 8. We were on a beach building a sandcastle. She was directing, pointing, telling me where to put the sand. I was on my knees, dutifully patting the walls, a serious expression on my little face. A wave of sadness washed over me, but it was a different kind of sadness now. It wasn't for the sister I had lost because I had never really had her. It was for the sister I had never gotten the chance to have. The one who might have been a friend, an ally. The one who might have been proud of me. I closed the album and put it away. That person never existed. I had spent my whole life chasing a ghost, trying to win the approval of people who were incapable of giving it. My phone buzzed with a message from my new second-in-command, a sharp, funny woman named Anna. "Flight is confirmed. Car will pick you up at 6 a.m. Ready to take over Spain?" I smiled. I was no longer the girl in the picture, dutifully following orders. I was the one making the plans now. I was the one building the empire. I typed back my reply. "Ready." Stella had always wanted what was mine. My toys, my friends, my achievements. She had seen my life as a resource to be plundered for her own glory. Now she had nothing. She was living in my old bedroom in our parents' house, a prisoner of her own jealousy. And I, for the first time in my life, finally had peace. It was a peace I had fought for, a peace I had earned, and it was a peace I would never, ever give up.